All right, let's see if I can get better at this. Right, so what do all worldwide maps project? Coordinate systems, not the globe. What do the coordinate systems project? They're based on a datum to tie them to the world. What are datums? Things like spherical datums, right? You have geodesic datums, WGS 84, 83, NAD 27, NAD 83. All of those are spherical datums. That's what ties all the things that are projections to the spherical graticule, which is the gridded network of longitude, latitude, right? Nothing to do with the Earth so far. Now, longitude, latitude based on the stars. In the old days, it was called cosmography because there's a very real, indistinguishable relationship between stars, lands, and maps, right? For every single point on Earth, there's an equivalent, unique position in the sky. That's how right ascension declination ties to longitude, latitude. There's a direct one-for-one correlation. That's how you get ground positions and zeniths from a star. If there wasn't that one-for-one correlation, you wouldn't be able to celestially navigate. Now, distances between these two coordinate systems, and we're talking about geographic graticule, which is the coordinate system of longitude, latitude, is determined by nautical miles, again, which we went over, a unit of a circle. Sky miles, navigators minutes, 1 nautical mile, 1 minute of degree, 60 minutes, 1 degree, 1 degree, 60 nautical miles, right? And the power of that is that the distance determined by the nautical mile, once ratioed against the statute mile, as in the conference that we just went over, then is invariant between coordinate systems. So the distances measured in nautical remains consistent no matter the shape of the underlying topography. Again, we haven't actually calculated anything on the Earth. When we've looked at the sky, we've done trig, we've calculated a ground position for that potential star. We haven't measured the ground. We've calculated the ground based on the sky, right? So that means whenever we're using nautical miles or the equivalent statute miles, whether the shape of the Earth is a sphere or flat, we're using it based on the stars because we have a geographic graticule derived from angles from the stars and the celestial sphere itself. So we're comparing the celestial sphere to angles from the stars in a one-for-one spherical comparison. Anyone with me?
Yeah, no, that was excellent, man. That was really good.
And if you want to give the quick rendition on lat long, dude, this is the craziest story you'll ever hear. Like the amount of effort that was put into this. And it's like, people are like, where's your map? It's like, yeah, dude, where's our secret society unlimited funding? The ability to impose a decree where you say, hey, this is now the coordinate system. Anyone that uses a different one is fined $30 in a time when $30 is like, you know, a devastating amount of money. It's crazy, dude.
We can do the historicity of longitude if you think it'll help.
Yeah, it's always a good rundown, man. It's crazy.
Right. So we have, if you look at Wikipedia, longitude was invented, say, 200 BC by a dude named Hipparchus, who also invented a variant of a sextant, a distance to the stars, a variant of a sextant. He was taking apart a form of geometry. He's accredited with a whole bunch of stuff, but fast forward to like 1712, and the Board of Longitude came about from the Royal Society, and they decreed, electing themselves the Board of Longitude, they would, find the furthest southern extremities of longitude, and they needed a device called the chronometer, right? And this is prompt from Isaac Newton, who was like, no one can create the timepiece that would maintain this at sea to be able to get the furthest reaches of long. And then some craftsman dude who'd never made a clock before in his life came out and met Isaac Newton's challenge in the public and created the best chronometer that anyone's ever seen. And now they'd be able to tell longitude. And then they were sent on a mission by the Board of Longitude based on a decree in the Almanac of 17, when was America founded? 77? 76?
1777.
Yep, so right about there.
Yep,
they had a decree where they would pay everyone like 2,000 pounds to go to the furthest southern reaches and map the celestials that they see so that they could get the most accurate determination of longitude to a half of a degree, right? But they already could do that based on navigation methods at sea. They had something called the clock stars, right? They had lunar transit methods, and they would say the moon would take a certain amount of time to pass through a star. That would give them a corresponding degree of longitude. They'd also use something called equinox and base the longitude measurements on that. So they don't actually need longitude to be able to navigate anything. Nobody needs longitude for anything. That's just a lie. They could get to where they were going within a half of a mile, really. Within, all the thousands of years, they could navigate the seas based on latitude, based on observation of the Polaris or the sun, and longitude based on equinox, and or where they could get the their time component or right ascension component from lunar transit and or Jupiter's moons, right? So they had astronomy methods down to the T to be able to get a component of longitude to determine roughly with their latitude, which is just their angle to the sun, where they were getting and how they could navigate. So the whole story of longitude came from one museum in 2014 issued by the Royal Society from one WinRAR dump. That was one archive, and all the information I just relayed to you came from that one museum. So that's the history of longitude. Should work, right? But then you got to tie it back to a coordinate system. So like if we had just a map of nothing, we could do grid lines of 1 inch squares, sure. In actuality, the Mercator map as a equal distance projection actually does preserve directions like that, because you can dead reckon. That is the map that you can get on, take a ruler, draw a direction, and then dead reckon that direction. People try to do that on the azimuth equidistant projection. That's absolutely wrong. That's the wrong. As soon as you put a ruler on that map, you're using it wrong. The direction is a revolving cylinder around the central cylindrical axes, right? That's what direction preserving is, and that's how the directions match reality, or in your case you can say that's how the directions match the globe. So if you're taking that projection and you're using it as with a ruler, then the directions are no longer preserved, they are corrupted, right? So that's not how that works. I forgot what I was saying though. Oh, grid lines, yeah. So the Mercator map was a longitude, latitude. It's a spherical graticule, but it's spread out in equidistant 1 inch squares so that you can use it to navigate with dead reckoning that way. So like we could make that. We could say the Mercator map works, but it's just tied to the stars. Everything on our world is tied to the stars, man. Like cosmography was all there was, because people understood you can't separate the land from the stars. When they would map new stars, they would find new land, always in that order, never the reverse. Never did they find and map new land and like, oh look, now we have new stars. They only had land because they could map the stars. And when the first map ever was a star map on a cave wall, dude. They'll tell you that on Wikipedia. Then they'll give you a bunch of fake Greeks who knew about longitude and invented everything we needed that's sat for 2,000 years, but don't worry about that. Cosmography, and they're like, oh, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna call it cartography, and we're gonna make that thing it's a globe, and then we're gonna call it cosmology, and no one's gonna ever know the difference. If we only knew cosmography as itself, we would never be confused about the maps, right? All maps are linked to the stars. Now every time we have a discussion, I have to fight so hard. They'd be like, no, it's based on the stars. Everybody knew this 100 years ago. Everybody knew it, right? Currently, during the World War II, when they started flying over places, they were using the Mercator, and they were like, guys, this is not what the thing says this country would look like. It's way bigger, right? So they had to go correct it, and everyone was freaking out, like, oh, has maps been lying to us our whole life? Yeah, kind of.
Pat, do you guys think this happens like every 80 to 100 years when people pick up on what's going? Like, do you think this cycles in and out over millennia after millennia, where people think it's flat, then they think it's a sphere, then they think it's...
No, 100% not. I think 2 generations ago, everyone on Earth knew it was flat. And after that, they poisoned our minds. Like, you know how the communists take over a country? Like, they don't worry about you. They indoctrinate your children and get you to turn against the parents. So 2 generations of that, and the kids are having grandkids themselves, and then they've taken over the whole country. Communist ideological subversion works the exact same way. But your great-grandparents all knew the Earth was flat, dude. There's so much evidence that it was inserted late 1800s to early 1900s. All the G's, Alex Gleason, Samuel Rowbotham, all wrote their books 1860 to 1890. And that's when they were like, all the scientists seem to be thinking that it's spherical for some stupid reason, but we know they're retarded, and we're writing these books so everyone can keep it straight. I mean, I'm paraphrasing a little bit, but if you read Gleason's book and you read Rowbotham's book, there's a lot of commentary on science as a whole, and they're like contemporaries, and they're like, we don't know what the hell's happening, but everybody went retarded, essentially. So then you go to like 1900s, and there's schooling, there's newspaper clippings, there's thousands of newspaper clippings talking about flat Earth, there's schools teaching flat Earth, some alongside globe Earth. There's that Ruth video from David Weiss that always goes into that. That's excellent. Put all that together, and it's like, well, this is a very new deception. They inserted it right after this. All the history that they told us about that longitude bit that I went into, that's 100% fake. None of that happened. I don't think any of that's real, right? If it all comes from the Royal Society and it was all inserted after the fact to give us the appearance of a continuous historicity of globularity. What do you guys think about that?